Welcome everybody, Frank DiMora, April 24th of 2012. And if you just discovered my YouTube channel for the last Chronicles of Planet Earth, please go to my website. You'll see it up here, BibleProphecyMan.com. Now I'm going to get right into the prophecies. Don't waste your time, because I know that you want to see the connections between the Word of the Lord and what is currently taking place. And all of this information, by the way, you can download in my book, which is the current book, April the 16th edition of 2012. Let me get right into two different prophecies. You'll see it here, Daniel chapter 12, verse 4, and then chapter 17 of the book of Revelation. Now, Daniel chapter 12 deals with the increase of knowledge prophecy, and Revelation chapter 12 deals with the Antichrist. You're going to see how I tie these things in here. Now, in Daniel chapter 2, in that chapter, obviously I'm not going to put up the whole chapter, and I'm hoping that you'll go and read that for yourself. But Daniel chapter 2 gives us a complete outline of the world empires from when Daniel was alive, or the prophet Daniel, if you will, when he was alive during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. That's when he got the information to show King Nebuchadnezzar what this dream meant that the king had. And so we found out by the Lord that the vision that Daniel was given, the interpretation of it was a complete outline of every world empire that would exist during the time of Daniel all the way till the second coming of Jesus Christ. And also, since we know in Daniel chapter 2 that the last world empire that would be ruling at the time that Jesus came back would be a revived Roman Empire. The nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire, we are told they're going to somehow reemerge again in the last days. They would be overtaken by the Antichrist, and at the finality of this world empire, it would filter down into 12 toes, if you will, or the 10 kings that Jesus mentions in the book of Revelation chapter 17. And so let me give you another part of what Daniel shows us in Daniel chapter 2 verses 41 through 43, because the news that I'm going to show you now is going to show you how the current events are leading to where this prophecy is eventually going to take us. It says this: "Whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of pottery's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with murky clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with murky clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." Now, when you go into the book of Daniel, you're going to find out in Daniel's book that there was the head that started off was gold, and as the kingdoms came and defeated the previous kingdom, the metals were reduced until we get to the last days where we see this iron. And the iron is just symbolic of the degrading of these kingdoms over these many, many years up until the time that Jesus Christ would come back. And so let me give you some indications now how, because the European Union, if you don't know, please read chapter 2 of my book, and you'll show that the European Union is made up of 27 nations. Those 27 nations just so happens to be the nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire. So we saw the revived Roman Empire reemerge in the last days. They are already here. Now, what's happening now, as we see from Daniel chapter 2 verses 41 through 43, where we are told that they're not going to mix together. It's like part iron and part clay. The kingdom be partly strong and partly weak. And then it goes on to say partly broken. And so let me show you that the world is going into major crisis, a financial crisis that will eventually cause the Antichrist to rule. We know that from chapter 17 of the book Revelation, and we also know that in the Revelation chapter 13. And you could look this up for yourself, chapter 13, verses 16 through 17. Other information about the Antichrist causing this mark, his mark, to be placed on everybody. At least he's going to make the attempt to put it on everybody in their right hand or in the forehead. So he's going to have complete control of the economy. And we know that the economy, the world economy, is right now in dire straits, and it's going to get much worse. We believe that the road leading to the Antichrist will be from an economic disaster of one kind or another. It may be purely through an economic default, or it could be for the rapture of the church. When people from all over the world disappear, could you imagine what's going to happen to the economy when millions and millions of people are gone? It will devastate it. So whatever it is, whatever scenario the Lord's going to use, we know that we're definitely heading in that direction. Now, to show you how, first of all, we know that Revelation chapter 17, we know it from Revelation chapter 13, which is not here, obviously. But then also we have in Daniel 12:4 with the increase of knowledge. Let me just show you how I'm going to put these together, because there's no doubt in my mind that the Antichrist will be using surveillance technologies to keep track of all the people around the world. He will be using this through a military force and people that he has established under his kingdom rule. So here is, when you talk about increased knowledge, this generation is the only generation who would ever be able to do anything like this. And of course, let me bring this down a little bit so you could read it on the screen a little bit better. There you go. This from the Mail Online. See today's date, the 24th. It says, is there a drone in your neighborhood? Rise of spy planes enforced after the FAA is forced to reveal 63 launch sites across the U.S. And so what you have here is you have a government who is, obviously from this article, has these drone sites that they can launch them. Now, when you go into the article, you'll be able to see where these sites are. And when you scroll down, you'll see a map for every single one of them. You'll see here, the University of Connecticut. There it is right there. And as you scroll down, you're going to be able to see every one of these places, the United States Marine Corps. And there's a whole bunch of them. You'll scroll down, you'll be able to see each one of these once you go to the site. Now, here's the bottom line to it. The bottom line is, first of all, our generation is the only generation who would be able to do something like this. And it's because of our increase of knowledge that a government like this would be able to do surveillance on their people without them even knowing about it. And of course, we know that at the end times, Antichrist is going to want to monitor everybody, especially when he orders that mark or the number of his name. So he's going to have to keep track of everybody. He's going to have the technology to be able to do that. And this is one form of technology that he would be able to use at his disposal. And it's not the only place in the world that they're using this kind of technology. They have it in many different parts of the world. They're using these drones. And as you see, not only is it the drones, but there's unique kind of drones. Excuse me, I don't want to get you dizzy as I roll down here, but here's the drone. This is one form of the drone. It says killer. Some of the drones owned by the military might be the MQ-9 Reaper, which has been used to target terrorists overseas. And this is one of them, but take a look at this. Many of you have seen this before, as I posted it at my site to show you, again, advances in technology fulfilling Daniel 12:4. It says, watching you, most of the drones are likely to be a small craft such as the Dragonfly X8, which can carry a payload of only 2.2 pounds. And police, border patrols, and environmental agencies such as the National Ocean and Astronomic Administration, or NOAA, could use them effectively. So there's all kinds of technologies out there, and this just again shows us that we are in the last generation, the generation who's going to make it possible to fulfill the words of the Lord. We know that there's only one real Lord, and there isn't any more than that. So what we have here is, you see how all these prophecies are coming together. Now I'm going to tie into with you this prophecy here. It shows us that the revived Roman Empire, again, the same nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire, are falling apart. Now, when you get to these articles, you're going to see, for example, it says, update, more grief for Greece as recessions seem deeper. Now, Greece was one of those nations that wanted a bailout. They needed a bailout because the country was falling apart. And now they got the bailout, but you're going to see in this article that it is a lot worse than they thought. So I'm going to go right to the article. You'll be able to do the same thing once you get to my site. You'll have to excuse some of these pop-ups that come up. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you so that you can see the whole thing. There you go. As soon as I bring it into focus for you. All right. So what does it tell us? Now, keep in mind, Greece is one of those nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire. You must know that if you studied any kind of history. Alexander the Great was a fulfillment of Scripture, and his kingdom was divided into 4 different sections by the generals who took over his kingdom after he died. But it says this. Greece's economy will contract a deeper than expected 5% this year, and the country's central bank chief said on Tuesday, piling more pressure on the citizenry already battered by crippling austerity and record jobless. And again, please keep in mind, there's going to be a major economic collapse. And when that happens, you know what's going to happen next is because there's going to be calls for one man to control everything, or somebody to get us out of this catastrophe or this collapse. And this is one of the ways that the Antichrist will prevail, come out. He's going to look like he's going to have the answers, but obviously people will find out in the end that he was a liar, a deceiver, and he's the one that the Lord, the true Lord, Jesus Christ, warned about. It says the projection topped the previous forecast the central bank made in March when it projected a 250 billion euro economy would contract 4.5% after a 6.9% jump in 2011. Now, twice bailed out, Greece is in its 5th consecutive year of recession. So obviously that isn't good. And speaking to the shareholders at the Central Bank Annual Assembly, George Papadopoulos, also a European Central Bank governing member council, urged strict adherence to reform the fiscal adjustment commitments. Greece has agreed with the Eurozone partners, saying that they were needed to return the economy to a sustainable growth. Now, what is at issue here is just to show you the news, to help hopefully that you will keep in mind the names of the countries that used to be in the old Roman Empire, because those countries right now are in the financial difficulty. And as a result, we see some of the countries being weak, some of the countries being strong, just like the prophet Daniel told us. But as we can see from it, we know that they're not going to hold together, because it says right there, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So eventually they're going to fall apart, and at the end result, we'll see a 10-nation confederacy. We don't know exactly which ones will be coming. We know that they're going to be part of the old Roman Empire. They will solidify, give all their power over to the Antichrist, and he will begin to do his reign. Here's another one. The Dutch government collapses as top-level budget cuts talks fail. So we have another one of these nations. I'll let you go to that. I'm not going to go to it, but I just want to show you that they're out there. They're having problems, but that there's other nations involved. Now, when you read this article, you will also see, well, let me just go to it really briefly, because there are other nations that are also struggling to keep their heads above the water. And you'll see it here as soon as the page loads for us. Let me go down here a little bit because we talk about other nations here. They talk about the austerity budgets. And let me just scroll down. All right, here you go. It says the finance minister, Jan Kees de Jager, insisted that he still plans to submit an outline budget to Brussels by April the 30th, as mandated by the European rules. And he said that he was optimistic about prospects of agreeing some cuts with the opposition parties in Parliament. Will show the financial markets in constellation with the Parliament that the Netherlands' decades-long budgetary discipline will remain, he told reporters after a brief cabinet meeting ahead of the resignation. Opposition lawmakers say that they are prepared to work with Rudy to draw up a 2013 budget. And this just goes down and shows you that the euro is definitely the euro nations are in turmoil, and that they're trying to do whatever they can to bring out or to stop the bleeding, if you will, the financial bleeding that is currently taking place in the euro and in the European Union nations. Now, this article that I was hoping for, there was another one, I believe it was in a previous article that I just put up there for you, that it talked about well, here it is. Thank you, Lord, for bringing this to our attention here, because this is important. It says, it calls into question whether austerity policies that are causing trauma in countries such as, here you go, Greece, Spain, Portugal, can be enforced even in core European countries such as France, who is also now having huge problems, or in the Netherlands, and one of the few, along with Germany, to maintain an AAA credit rating. So Germany is one of the strong ones, and we see that Italy is having problems, Greece is having those problems, Spain is having those problems, and so is Portugal. So we have the prophecy of what we see in Daniel chapter 2, verses 41 through 43. We see the handwriting on the wall to what is going to be happening. Now, again, let me turn my attention now to another prophecy, and I'm just going to have them right here. You'll see all of these, the writing right here. You'll see, for example, in Hosea, these are prophecies warning that in the last days you're going to see birds, animals, humans dying. And I have a part of my website, I have a list I've been tracking over the years of all the diseases and how these animals and birds are dying, and I wanted to give you some information. This is added information showing us some information about some other, in this case it would be the dolphins. You see here it says death of 877 dolphins washed ashore in Peru, shrouded in mystery. The environment officials are investigating the deaths of over 800 dolphins that have washed up this year on the northern coast of Peru. Now, according to this article, they really are not sure. I'm going to let you read the article for time strengths, but so far there's been 877 of these dolphins that washed up. And washed up in a 130-mile area stretching from Punta Gorda to throughout here in Peru. So over 80% of the dolphins were already in advanced state of decomposition, or decomposition from, and making it hard to study the deaths. But they're not completely sure why this is happening. But the fact is, it is happening. And the bottom line is, we're seeing results more often than we have been in the past years about mysterious deaths from birds and fish and animals, livestock, and they're all happening at the same time that we're seeing all of the rest of the prophecies take place at the same time. And this just is another key showing us we are in the last days. Now, again, another prophecy in Psalm 83. Psalm 83, if you don't know, is a prophecy about the bordering nations around Israel are going to attack Israel, trying to just destroy Israel. And you'll see that once you read the entire Psalm 83, which isn't really that long. Now, in 1 Thessalonians, I'm going to tie it together here because Paul warned that when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So at a time where they're calling for this peace and safety, as Paul warns us, we're going to see the destruction. We know where the destruction's coming from, and part of that destruction will be as evident as this war takes place between Israel and the Arab states. Now, one of the Arab states involved in this Psalm 83 war is Egypt. And you can see here it says PM, Egypt's Sinai turning into the Wild West. I'm going to bring you to that article and just cover a little bit about this because I just need to keep you updated as far as what's going on between Egypt, because a long time ago I warned the people, please watch what's going to take place in Egypt. Something is going to happen in the future that will stop their peace plan. They are going to be given over to a different cruel leader, Egypt would, and then they would go after Egypt and part of the Psalm 83 force. And we see all of those things taking place now. Now, I can tell the people, look, I am not a prophet, but I do know what the Bible says. So I'm telling you what the prophets told us. That's all I'm doing is connecting the dots for you. But if you know already what the Lord has revealed to us and you're wise and you have faith to believe, if you're watching the news like the Lord said, to keep on the watch. You'll see this in Matthew 24. All over, you'll keep seeing the Lord telling us, keep on the watch, keep on the watch. We who know the word of the Lord know what to watch for. We know that we needed to watch what was going to go on in Egypt. And so the peace plan before the Israelis and Egypt is falling apart, and we see that there's a lot of different skirmishes going on in the border that there wasn't in the past because of the peace plan between these two countries, but now that's fallen apart. So it says this, early this month, Jerusalem said a rocket fell in Elet, originated in Sinai. Egypt warns against inflaming border situation. Now, Egypt's Sinai Peninsula has turned into the kind of Wild West, which terrorist organizations use to smuggle weapons with Iranian assistance and initiate attacks on Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told the Israeli radio on Tuesday. The open desert border between Israel and Egypt has been relatively quiet since the 1979 peace treaty. That's the one that I was just talking about. It says, but various Israeli officials have said that since the fall of the former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, Cairo lost control of the desolate Sinai, escalating tensions. And just let me tell you this from the word of the Lord. Know this, that it's going to get worse between Egypt and Israel. Why? Because prophecy has to be fulfilled. We know that God pointed out Egypt as part of the force, and so just put 2 to 2 together and you will know that eventually you will see this war take place and Egypt will mount as part of that force against Israel. So if you don't believe me, just keep watching the news. Watch what's going to happen between Israel and Egypt, because it will get worse, and it will get worse until that prophecy is fulfilled. Now let me go back to my site. Just take a second for it to load here, and we'll continue on. Now, in Isaiah chapter 17, verse 1, there's a prophecy about what's going to happen to Damascus in the last days. You will see part of this prophecy about Damascus also in Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 24 through 27. And here you'll see the fire that's going to come on Damascus. And in Isaiah 17:1, we're told that Damascus is going to be left in a ruinous heap. So why do you think all of the news that you're watching currently coming out of the Middle East about Syria is taking place? Well, this issue about Syria is taking place because that too is going to fulfill prophecy. In other words, when I say that too, Syria will fulfill prophecy. And we believe that what the Bashar al-Assad's government, the leader of Syria, is doing right now is really forming the road to what's going to happen to Syria. Will it be Israel that will decimate Damascus and Syria? That is a great possibility, especially if there was all of these attacks, skirmishes turn into a war and Syria got involved in it. Israel would go in, launch an attack on Syria, and could wipe them out. Or Israel could attack Iran, and Syria might say, along with the rest of the Arab nations that border Israel, say, let's go down and take out Israel because they attacked Iran's nuclear facility. Anything is possible, but we need to pay attention to what's going on. But the bottom line is, the news, for example, like the rebels seeking to topple the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, killed 3 regime officers in separate attacks Tuesday around Damascus. Activists and state media said the latest violence targeting the security forces used by the government to squash the dissidents. So they're on the verge of complete civil war, killings, thousands of people in Syria dying at the hands of their own government. And this again also fulfills part of prophecy where the Lord spoke in Matthew 24 verses 6 and 7, who warned about rumors of wars and wars. So keep your eyes on what's going on in the Damascus, because Damascus is still yet to fulfill parts of prophecy, one of which they will be destroyed, and one of which they will be partners with the Arabs who come after Israel. So as long as you know what's happening in the Middle East, so you'll be more, hopefully, attainted or put attention to what you're watching on the news. It's just taking a second to load this up. Let me go back one more. There we go. Sorry about the time it takes to get back, but I'm at the mercy of my computer here. Now let me go on here. Here's the last one for today, Matthew 24:12. And because iniquity shall abound, the lovers of many shall grow cold. We know that there's all kinds of crimes. We know that the Lord told us about the civil unrest in Matthew chapter 24. And we're seeing different stages of this around the world. Last year, there was different stages of the civil unrest around all these Arab countries because of the lack of food and people not being able to buy food. Lawlessness is another one of those things that can cause it. And the Lord told us that that was going to happen. And then connecting that with what Timothy told us in 2 Timothy, all the characteristics of the people living in the last days, how brutal they were going to be. They were going to be ungodly men. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come, and they're already coming. We see that. For men shall be lovers of their own selves. We see that. Covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, definitely unholy, and without natural affection. If you don't know God, you don't have the affection of God. You don't have the compassion of Jesus Christ. Remember, Jesus said, some have compassion, making a difference. Well, people who don't know the Lord, they don't have this as one of their traits. It says truth breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce. People are going to become fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitor, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Now, let me just give you one example. You saw there's been a lot of information going on about the shooting, this killing in Florida, where this young black person was killed. And this article talks, or this video, this news from it, talks about this gentleman that was beaten almost to death. He's in critical condition. And the people who did this in retaliation for that killing that took place in Florida. And what we see here is racial violence starting to spring up again, which definitely is not good for either the blacks or the whites or the country in itself. And you can, bottom line is this: the person responsible for this is Satan. He is using people, he's antagonizing people who don't know the Lord to go ahead and create this kind of violence. And because of this violence, you have people's hearts that are waxing cold. And things are going hand in hand. So please, go to my site, listen to the news. It'll give you the information about this. Please, people, we know that the Lord is coming. Give your life to the Lord today, please.